Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Sean. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. On Saturday, October 22nd, the closing day of Chinese Communist Party 20th Congress, something unusual happened. A very unusual thing happened. You must have seen the footage of Mr. Hu Jintao, who led China for 10 years before Xi assumed the presidency, being physically escorted out of the closing ceremony. Events involving the high officials of the Chinese government are highly choreographed, making unharmonious episode highly unusual. Did Xi Jinping deliberately have his predecessor ejected in a symbolic display of power? Since this incident, there has been no government remark, and the coverage of the moment has been censored within China. That has only added to speculation abroad. Based on the footage shot by Singapore-based channel News Asia, Hu was sitting next to Xi, and next to Hu is the outgoing Politburo Standing Committee member Li Zhanshu. Mr. Hu Jintao can be seen trying to read a set of documents that are covered by a red sheet, but was intervened by Li Zhanshu. Li seems to explain that the documents need to remain covered. Mr. Hu is seen physically trying to hold on to the file, but eventually Mr. Li takes the documents away from him. While this is unfolding, Mr. Xi can be seen motioning to another man who comes and speaks to him while Mr. Hu continues to reach for the folder. The man addressed by Mr. Xi then tries to persuade the former president to leave, at one point attempting to physically lift him up from his chair. Mr. Hu finally stands up with some help from the party aide, and is also seen trying to speak with the Chinese president on his way out. So, what happened? China observers are divided over which explanation is the most plausible. There are three possible explanations. The first explanation is Mr. Hu's health. Observers noted that on October 16th, Mr. Hu had appeared slightly unsteady when he was assisted onto the same stage for the opening ceremony of the Congress. But if he had some kind of medical emergency, Mr. Hu appeared reluctant to accept the need to go. In the video, he stays seated as an aide attempts to lift him by the armpits, then appears to try and move back to his seat once standing. Finally, he reaches for a folder on the table in front of the current president before Mr. Xi rests a hand on it and says a word or two. One possibility is that there was an unexpected COVID-19 diagnosis of which he was unaware, but that would mean a PCR test was processed just at the wrong moment. However, I found this explanation not convincing because Beijing has not provided this explanation yet. Any news coverage of the incident was censored within China. The second explanation is that by having Hu Jintao leave, Xi Jinping could keep Hu in the dark about what comes out of the voting. One of the last things Hu saw at the Congress was the voting to elect the party's new 205-person Central Committee, which will go on to determine the next group of core leaders on Sunday. Out of the core 25 top officials from the previous leadership team, only 12 will stay in power. Neither the Premier Li Keqiang nor Li Zhanshu, the head of the country's ceremonial legislature, made it to the list. The officials amended the party charter in Hu's absence to include the language that many analysts believe will elevate Xi's standing. Since this is the violation of how the power game is usually played, Hu must leave, so he wouldn't make any scenes. During Hu's first term in 2006, the Central Chinese authorities issued a rule barring Chinese officials from holding the same position for more than 2 terms. The rule is missing from the current party charter. The third explanation is more disturbing, that Mr. Hu's departure is a staged and a symbolic rejection of the older, more liberal order of the Chinese Communist Party. It is broadcasting to the world that there is a changing of the guard that includes the removal of Mr. Li Keqiang from the all-powerful Politburo, alongside the 3 other high-ranking officials. Premier Li Keqiang, Hu Jintao's protege, was dropped from the Politburo Standing Committee. Incumbent Vice Premier Hu Chenhua, 59 years old, not only failed to be appointed to the Politburo Standing Committee, but was even dropped from the 24-person Politburo. He had been an aide to Li Keqiang and, like Li, had a Communist Youth League connections. This would be an extraordinary move, but one that rammed home the message of Xi's absolute power, something reinforced by the rest of the party Congress, which just solidified Xi as the core of the party in the Chinese constitution. This would fit well with the fact that the incident took place just after TV cameras had been set up to show the proceedings in the Great Hall of the People. Before that, there had been a closed-door meeting. While Hu Jintao was being escorted out, other high officials sat on and looked on, including Mr. Hu's former second-in-command Wen Jiabao. There must be a chilling effect on the officials watching what was happening on the stage. It will create a psychological impact on those officials. Now, the 69-year-old Xi Jinping, General Secretary of Chinese Communist Party, is the most formidable Chinese leader of the post-Mao era. He has reversed the party's decades-long efforts to ensure regular leadership succession and prevent a return to Mao-style dictatorship. Having dominated the latest leadership shuffle, he enjoys a firm hand to pursue his agenda, which includes a more egalitarian society, a state-led economy, and a muscular foreign policy. What's next for Hu is unknown. If he really was just ill, then perhaps we'll see him in the future sitting in the front row as expected. But if Hu's removal plays out to be a theatrical display of Xi's political power, then perhaps we'll learn at some point that Hu has been purged, or maybe it will stop at what we saw on Saturday night. And we'll never know for sure in any cases. It's important to remember that political opponents of the CCP often fall ill or die in very questionable circumstances. The political environment in China does nothing to stop the rumor mill. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly. Until then, be well.